My journey into entrepreneurship began 10 years ago whilst I was studying at university. Somebody handed me $500 for winning a design competition for designing a mathematical toy and said it would be cool if I actually made it. And having just graduated from my degrees, I thought it was the perfect opportunity to spend the money on a trip to New York instead. Woo! That was a fun time. But I returned home a year later, and the university emailed me because they wanted to write an article about me for having created the toy. And I had to respond apologetically and feel a little disappointed in myself for having not made it. To be honest, I didn't know where to start. Luckily, I had just watched a documentary on the plane about people launching products using crowdfunding campaigns, and so I quickly kicked into gear. I found someone in China to knock up some prototypes, a lab to test the materials and make sure they were suitable for children. I spent only 2 days making a marketing video, pressed launch, and 30 days later had $20,000 in my account. I managed to ship the product to hundreds of customers overseas, to some retailers, and most importantly, to the director of the preschool who gave me the $500 to begin with. But my destiny was not to become a toy designer, and I moved to Munich, Germany, and started working with some startup companies, helping them promote their products and raise revenue from customers and sponsors. And what a vibrant world this was, working with startups, one that I quickly fell in love with. And so when I returned home once more to Australia, I started running entrepreneurship programs at the university to help hundreds of other people launch their products and grow their businesses. One of the most common questions that founders asked is, how do I raise money from investors? And I started to feel like a little bit of a phony teaching people how to capital raise when I hadn't done that myself. And so I thought I would go and do the next best thing and become an angel investor, someone who funds startup companies with their personal money in return for some equity. But there are a few barriers to angel investing, and all the angels that I knew and saw were of a certain age, gender, and status. And so I started thinking to myself, is this something that I can actually do? And I had been coaching some young women entrepreneurs, helping them gain their confidence and push past their limiting beliefs. So I knew I had to do the same. Ultimately, I knew I'd figure it out. And if I accomplished this, then I knew that I would have a unique perspective and strengths, and I'd stand out and hopefully inspire others to angel invest if they wanted to as well. And so the first company that I invested in was my partner's company at the time, and things really quickly escalated from there. I did 30 angel investments over 3 years. I started teaching the angel investors course at the university and managing their portfolio of over 50 companies. I also founded an angel club which initiated over $1 million in investments. I then started to refer to it as an addiction because I would be lying in bed at night scrolling through deals. One time even going as far as making an investment at 3 a.m. whilst I was heavily pregnant and couldn't sleep. And I remember telling my partner at the time and feeling very nervous about what I had just done. So why did I keep handing over thousands of dollars, mostly to strangers, when I had already reached my goal of not feeling like a phony and had already somehow become one of Australia's most active women angel investors? Why was I keep doing this, and what was influencing me to do so? Firstly, angel investing is very financially appealing. It can be very lucrative, but it is also incredibly risky. And there's this thing called the power law, which means that you have to invest in at least 20 to 30 companies in order to have a decent shot at having a high return. But building this portfolio of companies made me feel really positive about my future, especially because I had achieved a high internal rate of return, much higher than the average investor. Secondly, I felt really great about where the money was going, even if I didn't get any of it back. Many startup founders dedicate their lives to developing groundbreaking technologies, trying to solve some of the world's biggest problems, and in order to make a positive impact. Securing financial support can propel them forward towards success. And so it felt great to be able to contribute towards that. I got to support the ideas that I want to see in the world become a reality. Third, angel investing is an incredible learning opportunity. I get to be one of the first people on the planet to hear about new innovations, industries, and trends, some so brilliant that it genuinely brings a huge smile to my face. It also opened my eyes to the process of angel investing, which is ongoing learning and helps me develop in my career and become a better startup coach. And finally, angel investing has this alluring identity and reputation with it. And I get to be here telling a TEDx talk because of it, and it can't get much better than that. So why am I sharing all of this with you? It all comes back to that common question of how to raise capital from investors. For a really long time, I focused on all the fundraising materials: pitch decks, spreadsheets, term sheets, data rooms. I had a whole checklist of criteria of how to assess a business and rationalize it in the investor's mind to come on board. But the more I started reflecting on my journey and the reasons for why I was investing, I started to sense that there was a much deeper reason for it. And so my epiphany came one day when I was delivering a talk on how to influence investors. And Dale Carnegie's quote came up, which was famously, "The only way on earth to influence someone is to ask them what they want and show them how to get it." And so I walked into a room of angel investors and I asked them what they want when they invest. And they said things like financial gain, education, supporting brilliant ideas and people, social impact. And one person was even brave enough to say that they invested because of ego. So their motivations were practically the same as mine. And on the flip side, reasons for not investing included they didn't feel confident enough. It felt too risky. They just didn't care about what the company was doing, or they didn't know enough about the topic. And so from this, I realized that whilst angel investors like to think of themselves as very rational decision makers, there was a lot that was actually connected to basic human needs. They wanted to have financial return to survive. They wanted to feel confident for safety. They wanted to feel connected to the idea or the problem. They were investing for esteem, and they wanted to self-actualize. They needed knowledge to become better versions of themselves. And so I'd like to quickly talk through each of these needs and provide some examples of investments. The first need, survival. Angel investors need money to survive and keep surviving as angels. And so they'll ask themselves, can I afford to make this bet? Can I get a huge financial return? And you'll be surprised at how many founders do not communicate this so effectively. One of the first angel investments that I made, my partner laughed at me at the time. I invested in a company that was a marketplace for digital artwork that was tokenized as a crypto collectible. Now, a lot of people know what NFTs are now, but a few years ago it was a very new concept, and so I don't blame my partner for laughing, because it seemed wild that people were selling this digital art at such high prices, and the page kept freezing as I was loading, so that didn't help. But I didn't know what non-fungibles were, so why did I invest? Well, I enjoyed art and I wanted to support digital artists, but the reason that I really invested was the company on their website had the live statistics of how many transactions they were doing. And I knew the business model, and I could see the thousands of dollars that they were making every time I refreshed the page. And so I followed them for a few days, and I could sense that momentum, and I knew that something really exciting was happening. And that became quickly one of my best angel investments. I already made a partial return, and it allowed me to continue to survive as an angel and reinvest that money into new companies. The second need, safety. Does the investor feel confident, or is this too risky? One of the most obvious ways to make an angel feel safe is through a trusted relationship. A lot of investors will tell you that they made their decision based on the founding team. But a lot of angels also invest through syndicates or groups, and they never ever even meet the team. And so in these situations, sometimes they follow social proof. So there's somebody endorsing the deal, or somebody famous might be investing in the company. But this can be, whilst an indication of the company doing quite well, it could also be very risky, and I know some people have been burnt because of it. There are many other ways of making investors feel safe, like emphasizing factors such as barriers to entry or patents and so on. I think the best way to make an investor feel safe is to show evidence that customers want to pay for the products. The number one reason that startups fail is that there is no market need. And so I invested in a company that was using technology to offer pediatric, urgent, and primary care. Now, I didn't get to meet the team, but they seemed like they were world class, and the financials were great, and the cause was wonderful. But the reason why I invested, and it seems silly to say, was the company had a perfect 5-star Google review, and they had hundreds of testimonials. People saying things like, "This is the best service I have ever received from a medical provider in my entire life." And so I felt confident and safe as an investor because I knew that the customers loved what they did, and the company is still doing very well to this day. The third need, connection. Angel investors need to care about what they're investing in. And so founders need to be able to tell a compelling story and know the right people to tell the story to. Even if the company is doing very well financially, in many cases investors still will not invest if they do not care. And so earlier this week, someone called me very, very excited about this amazing opportunity to invest in a Canadian ice hockey team. And by the way, there was someone famous also investing. And it did actually sound very tempting, but I have absolutely no connection to Canadian ice hockey, and so I'm going to have to let him enjoy this one. It may seem obvious to say, but investors are most likely to come in if they themselves have experienced the problem or they can see themselves as a user. The fourth need, esteem. Investors will consider their dignity and reputation when they are making an investment. I have made investment decisions because the company had a social, environmental impact. I have made investment decisions based on the gender of the founder because I wanted more women in my portfolio. I have made investments in health and medtech because I was running health accelerators and I wanted to have that experience. Or I've invested in companies that are associated to the university because I felt like it was my duty to do so. I've also said no to investments because fundamentally I did not agree with what they were doing, even when the opportunity seemed fantastic. In one instance, there was an opportunity in a pre-IPO round where a lot of my friends went in and they suggested a very fast return. But I'm glad I stuck to my values because it did not do so well in the end. And the fifth need, self-actualization. Whilst a lot of investors have extensive industry knowledge and networks, they still trust that the founder knows the business better than anyone else. And so they get excited and delighted by new insights that are shared with them. If you bring them on your journey as a founder, then you can reach them at their highest level. If you help them from a personal development perspective, then you can more likely bring them on board. And so to summarize, if you're wanting to get angel investment and influence some investors, then consider them as humans and touch them on their human needs. So consider financial survival, safety, connection, respect, and personal growth. I hope that you found that interesting. Thank you so much. Thank you.